It's the final series of the season for the Atlanta Braves. It could be a weekend of goodbyes and farewells. Who won't be back in an Atlanta Braves uniform in 2026? We'll talk about that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. If you're new and you're watching this on YouTube, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button as we're approaching 15,000 subscribers on YouTube. You can help others find us. Just hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below. You did a fantastic job of that on the last episode. I appreciate your support there so much. And on the audio side, you can help out too. Just leave me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Thanks so much for your support here at Locked On Braves. We're going to get into the exciting part of the season here soon as we get to the offseason for baseball. That's what a lot of Braves fans have been waiting for. But we do have one final series, the Braves and the Pirates. It all comes down to this weekend in Atlanta. Me and Lindsay will have you covered with that on the postcast. But I want to be talking about who could be wearing an Atlanta Braves uniform for the last time, or at least who won't be back to wear that uniform to begin 2026. Marcell Ozuna, Raisel Iglesias, Ryan Snitker. We'll talk about all that on today's episode, and we'll get into some of the races to watch here over the weekend in the final stretch. Who's still battling for a spot in the postseason? What are those awards looking like? Is Drake Baldwin now the favorite for the NL Rookie of the Year, or does he still have more to do over in this upcoming weekend against the Pirates? So a lot to talk about on today's episode, but I want to focus primarily at the beginning here as we watch the Atlanta Braves play for the final time this season in a 3-game series over the Pirates this weekend. How many of these players will not be back with the team next year and potentially coaches? And I'm going to go through it and look at, free agents, players with options, not options, non-tenders, guys like that. Let's start with those who we know are going to be impending free agents. And the two biggest one obviously are Marcell Ozuna and Raisel Iglesias. Now, I've come around back and forth, really haven't gone back and forth. I've been pretty consistent in saying that I want the DH spot to be more fluid going forward. I want the Braves to be able to find a big bat this outfield that can also, or big bat this offseason that can play in the outfield, but you can rotate through DH. You can put Profar in the DH spot, Acuna in the DH spot. You can find other ways to move guys around and get them off their feet. And I think it just allows you some more versatility, and it allows you to go out and get some more bats. So it almost allows you to get a solid bench bat who you could, almost guarantee to get at least a couple of starts a week in the DH spot, or to get somebody off of their feet and use them off the bench a little bit more. I think it makes your lineup more dynamic and versatile and better if the DH spot is more open, unless you're getting, 2020 Ozuna, 2024 and 2023 Ozuna. I just don't know that we're getting that guy anymore at this point from what we've seen this season. Now, he's fooled us before. He's looked like he was completely done, and then he turned things around and was one of the best hitters in the league for 2 years. But unless you have a Shohei Ohtani or a Kyle Schwarber, or like I said, a 2023 or 2024 version of Marcell Ozuna, and even at that, I just still think it helps to have a more fluid DH spot. So for me, this is goodbye to Marcell Ozuna. While, again, I have said in the past, if nobody else is willing to sign him and the Braves can get him back on a deal where if he is struggling, you are okay with putting him on the bench. If you got him for $8 or $10 million to bring him out as a good clubhouse guy, and a guy that maybe does get the majority of the starts in the DH, but maybe you sit him a couple of days a week, or if he is struggling, you just completely sit him for a while. If you could give him that type of money where that's okay, I'd be more open to it. But I just think I don't want, especially if Brian Snitker is coming back, I just don't want that temptation to just stick Ozuna in the DH spot every day. So for me, this is goodbye. I think it's time to part ways with Marcell Ozuna. And look, what a career that he has had just in Atlanta when you think about it from beginning to end. And look, I was as critical as anyone of Marcell Ozuna in the off the field situations that he had, back in 2021, 2022. And I straight up said, I think he needs to be suspended, even out of baseball, for what he did. But credit to him. While, on that point, I thought he should have been punished more severely. Everybody's always deserving of a second chance. And he got that with the Braves, and he has certainly made the most of it, and to the point where guys love him in the clubhouse, and he is a leader in that clubhouse. So credit to him. And of course, we don't know everything happening off the field, but we haven't heard any of that in the last couple of years. So hopefully he's turned his life around there. And I said this when all that went down, I don't really care what happens to him as a player. Hopefully he gets things together off the field. And again, from a very, very outside perspective, that seemed to have been the case. And just what a great personal reclamation project of Marcell Ozuna, from where he was in 2021, 2022 to now seemingly being a stand-up guy and leader in that clubhouse. As for Raisel Iglesias, I'd be more open to bringing him back. And again, if you could get him on 8, 10, at most $12 million, if you get him to the point where, maybe he opens the year as your closer, but he has the same struggles like he had this year, that slider's not quite where you want it to be, and you're okay kind of demoting him into that setup role and elevating somebody else as a closer quickly and not waiting as long as maybe you did this year, I'd be okay with that. I'd certainly would be okay with bringing back Raisel Iglesias for next season. So for Iggy, I'm going to say not so farewell. I think the Braves are going to bring him back. So those are your impending free agents. Now, the guys with options, Ha-Seong Kim, player option, we're all certainly hoping he's going to be back. Talked about it earlier in this week. I think the Braves need to go ahead and try to lock him up now. I think if he goes to free agency, it's goodbye to Ha-Seong Kim. Hope I'm wrong on that, but I think if he goes to free agency, we won't see Ha-Seong Kim back in a Braves uniform. Chris Sale, many people haven't talked about this one, I think, because it's a no-brainer, but he also has an option for next year at $18 million, but that's a no-brainer. Pierce Johnson at $7 million seems like a no-brainer as well. Ozzy Albies at $7 million. I still think that's a no-brainer. Well, look, Ozzy's going to be ready for 2026. It's just a matter of how long does it take him to get the strength back in that hand, that wrist, because it seemed like it took a while after this latest injury. But even if you don't pick up the option for Albies, you're only saving about $3 million. So unless you find just an amazing, even if you do think you find a huge upgrade in the offseason, because you got to make this decision before that, I still think you pick up the Ozzy option. And then if you do find something throughout the offseason, you could certainly move Ozzy's contract if you had to, or just keep him for depth. And like I said, have that extra depth. That would be fantastic. So I think Ozzy for me is a pretty easy pickup, even with the injury. And then Kenley, that's a pretty easy pickup too, with the way he's performed since coming over at $5.5 million. So I think all the option guys that are team options are pretty easy pickups and sell: Pierce Johnson, Ozzy Albies, and Kenley. And then Kim, you're certainly hoping he picks his up. And then of the impending free agents, I think Ozuna's gone, and I think Iggy is back. Now, non-tender candidates: Joel Payamps, Jake Fraley, Dane Dunning, Jose Suarez, Alexis Diaz, Jared Kelenic. Dylan Lee obviously is going to stay. Eli White and Nick Allen. Now, there's some interesting ones on this. Obviously, Payamps, let's see what the money is like. But it wouldn't be surprising if Payamps, Dunning, Suarez definitely, and even Alexis Diaz are all gone. Again, depending on the price. Jared Kelenic's the interesting one because he is now out of options after using his last one this year. He's arbitration eligible, so you're paying him, real money. I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with Jared Kelenic. I will say this: I don't think he's in a Braves uniform at any level next year. I think Jared Kelenic is gone. I think a couple other interesting ones are Eli White and Nick Allen. I wouldn't mind having Nick Allen as the 26th man, as a defensive replacement on the infield. But I would like to upgrade that to have somebody that also is not just a complete negative with the bat. They can also play some solid defense. Like, I think you have the opportunity to upgrade that spot and find somebody that's, a good defensive option off the bench for the infield, but also gives you at least something offensively. Eli White is an interesting one as well. I think Eli White's got a good chance of coming back, especially the way that he's played this year. I thought he did really well when he's given the opportunity to play every day. And, here lately coming off the bench, he's been fantastic. Elite speed, can play all over the outfield. I think Eli White has a good chance of coming back next year. You got Fraley too. Again, if they do add a big bat in the offseason who can play outfield, I think that pushes Fraley out, especially if it's a left-handed bat. Otherwise, I think Fraley could be back next season. Now, guys who are out of options, Brett Wisely, Nick Allen, as I just mentioned. So if he's not going to be on the 26th, I think Nick Allen's gone. Just me personally, I think Nick Allen's gone. Vidal Brujan, Luke Williams, I think Luke Williams is gone. Brujan is gone. I mentioned Eli White. I think he's back. Joey Wentz, I think it's going to be hard. Bryce Elder's an interesting one. I think Bryce Elder, they probably keep around beginning of the season and somehow keep him in the big league roster, whether it's 6-man rotation. He's a long man, spot start here and there. I think they find a way to keep Elder around. I think Wentz is going to be a little bit tougher. Dylan Dodd, he just hasn't. He's not the lefty guy that I was hoping he was going to be. He's better against righties. And at least to this point, Snitker hasn't exactly used him that way. So I don't know what they're going to do with Dodd either. That'll be an interesting one. Jose Suarez, obviously, I think is gone. Kelnick and Dunning, I think, are probably gone as well. Guys who are possibly traded, Sean Murphy, Aaron Bummer, and Bryce Elder. I think there's a chance that they're not back next year. Now, I do think as of right now with the injury, Sean Murphy is probably untradeable. So I think he's coming back, and I'm okay with that. Aaron Bummer, if you can find any way to move that deal, the Braves have just never, at least Snitker. Again, we could have a new coach and coaching staff next year. Maybe they do things differently, but Snitker's never trusted Aaron Bummer in a high leverage situation. If they can find any way to try to dump some of that salary, I think they will. So those are the guys who I think are potentially gone and some of the ones that I think will be back. But let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Who do you think is going to be back? Who are we saying farewell to this weekend? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. Next, we'll get into some of your comments and we'll get to the latest from around the league, where we'll talk about the division, wild card races, and those award races. Is Drake Baldwin the favorite for the NL Rookie of the Year? We'll get into all of that here next.
Fellas, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. Because Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula, so you can both get hard and go the distance. It's a game changer for confidence. The effects can last up to 36 hours, which is confidence both all day and all night, and even into the next day. Super simple process, 100% online. You connect with a board-certified doctor, and if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. So if you're ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom, head to Rugiet, RUGIET.com, and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. That's Rugiet, RUGIET.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Make sure to use our code so they know we sent you.
Thank you as always. Making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day. They'll get you caught up with everything happening this weekend around Major League Baseball. Those exciting division and wild card races must be fun to be a part of that. Unless you're one of those teams that are falling out, like the Tigers and the Mets. Although the Mets are looking pretty good. We'll get into that here in a second, or they're looking better at least. I want to get into some of your comments though, because I did ask you who you thought won't be back next year, and wanted to read some of your replies. Dan Antler says Bryce Elder because he's out of options. We talked about that. I think, again, it depends on what they do in the offseason, who they bring in. I'm hopeful they bring in some upgrades to the rotation, and if that's the case, I think it's likely they try to move Bryce Elder with the good ending to the season he's had. Perhaps he has some value. I'm not saying you're going to get a starting shortstop for Bryce Elder, but perhaps you could get a little bit something for a team that needs a back of the rotation innings eater. Which is what Bryce Elder can do for you. Colin Moses says Ozuna, and I think with Albie's injury, there's at least a higher chance we don't bring him back. I still think it's just, I'll say this. I think they pick up the option. Whether or not he's back depends on how the offseason unfolds. Thomas B says, bummer. If they can find somebody to take that contract, I think they would definitely do it. Agon says Elder and Wentz. I think Elder is more likely than Wentz to stick around. They're both kind of in that same boat. It's just which one do you believe in more? And I've seen I've seen better, longer stretches from Elder than I have from Joey Wentz. George Smith says Eli White probably. I don't think so. I think Eli White's very valuable on the Braves bench to be able to play all 3 outfield spots, play them well, good speed for a pinch runner, and he's done some good things with the bat this year. So I think Eli White's going to snick around. I said snit around because the next one says, Derek says snit, hopefully, and many of you in the chat as well, saying that you're hoping to say farewell to snit. We'll see. I was kind of delaying this podcast because I feel like if he were going to hang it up, he would have said something before the final series, just to go ahead and, get that out there, give AA and everybody a little bit of a head start on it. I feel like we would have heard something. And the fact we haven't tells me that he's leaning towards coming back. And maybe this current win streak has shifted him in that direction. I don't know. But I get the sense right now that if we don't hear something, by the start of the game, maybe we get something Friday morning. We'll have a emergency podcast, but I don't get the feeling that Snit's ready to hang it up quite yet. I think he got energized from this hot streak the Braves were on. Oren says Kim. Yeah, it's up to Kim. I certainly hope he's back. Matt Olson Burner says Ozuna. I definitely agree with you on that one. It's definitely one that I don't want to see back. And again, it's not so much about Ozuna as it is just having that DH spot. Jammin says resign Iggy. Charlie retires. Ozuna signs with the Rangers or Twins. It'd be interesting to see, who picks up Ozuna and what they are willing to give him. Ollie says, I hope that they re-sign Iggy and Kim. Me too. So those are some of your comments. Thanks for submitting those there on social media. I want to get into what's happening around Major League Baseball, though, in our Around the League segment here, and got some races happening in the AL East, surprisingly. Got a race going on right now between the Yankees and the Blue Jays. It hasn't been as talked about quite as much. The Yankees have made a good run here. But I think it's probably because both of those teams are in. The Yankees have won 5 in a row. They are 8-2 in their last 10 games. And right now those two teams are tied for the AL East. But again, both of those teams are going to get in, and both of them are going to get home field in their first round. Whether that's in the wild card round or the division round, though, is still to be decided. But both of those teams getting in. The Yankees, just got done taking care of the White Sox, and the Blue Jays beat the Red Sox on Thursday night. The Blue Jays finish versus the Rays. The Yankees finish at the Orioles. And then the top record in the American League is also up for grabs, kind of. It's going to either be the AL East winner or the Mariners. They're all within a game of each other. The Mariners finish this weekend against the Dodgers, so that's a pretty tough one for them. The Guardians are up or now tied with the Tigers after the Tigers won on Thursday night. I think that's gone final now. I was watching some of that one, and yeah, the Tigers did finish them off. So those two teams tied for first place going into the weekend. So that's going to be really fun to watch. The Guardians finish versus the Rangers, while the Tigers finish at the Red Sox. So those will be some fun games to watch this weekend. And then the wild card races, you got the NL wild card between the Mets, Diamondbacks, and the Reds. The Reds finally were able to beat the Pirates on Thursday after dropping the first 2 games. That was really their chance. I feel much better about the Mets' chances now. They did a good job taking 2 of 3 from the Cubs. They now have a game lead on the Reds. The Reds had to take advantage of that Pirates series, and they just simply did not. And now they go to face the Milwaukee Brewers, who have everything pretty much wrapped up. So they're going to be resting guys. So maybe that gives the Reds a little bit of a chance. Meanwhile, the Mets are going at the Marlins. You know how pesky they can be. So it's not done yet. And remember, the Reds just have to be tied with the Marlins. The Diamondbacks, 2 games out now. They're probably done at this point. It would take a lot for them to get that final wild card spot, and they finish at the Padres. Everything else in the National League is pretty much set. The Brewers are the top seeds. Like I said, they don't really have much to play for this weekend against the Reds. The Phillies get that second bye as well with the second best record, and the Cubs are the top wild card seed, and the Padres, that second seed of the Dodgers, obviously winning the NL West, but they are going to have to play in the wild card round, which I don't think many people would have predicted coming into the season, but they are in that wild card around with the Brewers having the best record in baseball. I think anybody would have predicted that coming into the season as well. They are a machine over there. The Brewers are a prime example of how to run a baseball organization. They do a fantastic job. In the American League wild card race, the Tigers, Astros, and Guardians for that final AL wild card spot. They're fighting it out right now. Like I said, The Tigers and Guardians fighting for that AL Central, but the loser might still get into the postseason in that wild card race, depending on what the Astros do this weekend. So that'll be fun to watch. The top 2 spots in the American League East will be in, along with the winner of in the Seattle. Like I said, those top 2 spots either go to Toronto and New York, or Toronto and Seattle, or New York and Seattle. Sorry about that. And then the American League loser will get that top wild card spot, and the Red Sox get the other wild card, the second wild card spot. So that's what you'll be watching this weekend, if you understood anything that I said there, but hopefully you did, and that all makes sense. And hopefully you all enjoy watching the action this weekend, not just the Braves wrapping things up against the Pirates, but also the fun division races and wild card battles that'll be happening over the weekend around Major League Baseball. And then as far as award battles to watch this weekend, National League MVP, it's going to be Ohtani in a landslide again. He's kind of quietly hit 53 home runs and scored 143 runs this year with a 171 WRC plus. I know say quietly and Ohtani in the same sentence is not something you hear, but I don't know, unless you're just following ESPN and that's all they push out is Shohei Ohtani, if they talk about baseball at all. I haven't really heard as much about him lately. Maybe that's just because of where my focus is. Geraldo Perdomo, though, has the second highest F4 in the National League right now. I don't think many people would have known that, or certainly not predicted that. And I remember in the offseason, we were all trying to trade for Perdomo to be the shortstop, and now we know why the Diamondbacks hung on to him so tightly. The NL Cy Young, Paul Skeens, he put the final touches on that Wednesday, shutting down the Reds in what was a playoff type atmosphere game between the Pirates and the Reds. Like I said, the Pirates basically, maybe, possibly ended the Reds season, winning 2 of 3 in that series. The NL Rookie of the Year battle, the one that we're all most interested in, it's between Cade Horton and Drake Baldwin. Now, I'm obviously biased, but I don't see how it's not easily Drake Baldwin. Cade Horton unfortunately left his final start of the season after just 3 innings with an apparent injury. So that is unfortunate. He had allowed just 1 run in those 3 innings. Meanwhile, Baldwin's been hot these last couple of weeks, and I think that pretty much has done it. He has 3 F4. Horton has 2.2. I think the only way Horton wins this, if the voters are just so enamored with his second half and what it meant to the Cubs, which it did mean a lot to the Cubs, but he's only thrown 118 innings. FanDuel still has Cade Horton as the favorites. Love our friends over at FanDuel. I don't see that. I think if you look at the whole body of work, and again, I know I'm biased, I think you take into account what Drake Baldwin's done offensively, being one of the best offensive rookies, especially in the National League, certainly in the National League, and the fact that he's been a catcher and the Braves have had to use so many pitchers. I just think it's easily Drake Baldwin. So hopefully that's going to be the case. Let me know what you think. Maybe I'm missing something here, but you go back to 2022, Spencer Strider had more F4 than Michael Harris, but they chose Michael Harris because he was a position player playing every day and playing a demanding defensive position. So that precedent has been set, and I just don't know how you look past that. And these 2 guys with Drake Baldwin, who's almost 1 more higher than Cade Horton. Your American League MVP, this is also a tight race. FanDuel has Cal Raleigh as the favorite, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. Cal Raleigh just hit his 60th home run of the year. He's playing a demand. I just made the case for Drake Baldwin and why he should get the edge in a close battle because he's playing a demanding position. So is Cal Raleigh. But Judge has the edge in F4. It's 9.6 and 9.1. It's not crazy, but also a 202 WRC plus to a 164 WRC plus for Cal, whose batting average is really hurting him. But again, I just think the value of Cal Raleigh and what he does behind the plate, hitting 60 home runs, carrying that Mariners team to a division title. Now, Judge might be doing the same here for the Yankees. They've come back and caught the Blue Jays in the AL East, but that's going to be a fun battle. And that's a toss-up. I don't think you can go wrong either way, but let me know what you think. Cal or Judge, who do you think should win it? The AL Cy Young, it's pretty clearly going to be Skubal, and then the American League Rookie of the Year is pretty clearly going to be Nick Kurtz of the A's. An insane rookie season. His own teammate is his only real competition, and Jacob Wilson is crazy. The A's thought they'd have a good year coming in. They get 2 amazing rookie seasons and still really weren't contenders at all. But let me know your thoughts on some of those awards, wild card and division races. Who do you think takes it home this weekend? Let me know in the comment section down below. Next, we'll get into our weekend preview, including the finale for Charlie Morton. We'll get into all of that here next. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel allows you to bet the way you like with player props, building the same game parlays, or even jumping in the action live as it unfolds. It makes the games more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. I just mentioned to you a minute ago, you look at their award predictions right now for Major League Baseball, and they still have Cade Horton as the favorite over Drake Baldwin at -270, Drake Baldwin at +190. So, like I just said, I think it's pretty clearly Drake Baldwin. Maybe I'm biased, but you can see those odds there at FanDuel.com. Also, please make sure you visit FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. So, are you ready? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. The Atlanta Braves will be wrapping things up this weekend at home against the Pittsburgh Pirates. They just really messed up the Reds season, and what was kind of how the Braves and the Tigers, that was the Braves kind of postseason here at the end. That Pirates-Reds series was kind of the Pirates postseason, and they took care of the Reds there, really messing things up for them. The Pirates currently have the third best draft odds, but they could potentially pass the Twins for the second best odds. So that's more incentive for them to want to lose this weekend against the Atlanta Braves. Pitching matchups will be Mitch Keller versus Joey Wentz, Bubba Chandler versus Spencer Strider. It'll be interesting to see the 23-year-old top prospect in Bubba Chandler, and then Juan Oviedo versus Morton Sell. Oviedo, really good stuff. Watched him pitch in that Reds game the other day. But it is confirmed Charlie Morton will be the opener on Sundays, the final game of the season for Chris Sale. Certainly, I think that's going to be a really cool decision. Hopefully it goes well and they can pull him out at a good time. Hopefully he doesn't just get absolutely smashed in the first inning. I would think maybe he pitches 1-2 innings, and then you pull him out in the middle of the next inning after maybe he gets an out or two to get that standing ovation. I imagine would probably be the game plan. I still think it would have been a better idea to have him do it on Friday night, where there's probably going to be a bigger crowd. You don't have to compete with NFL, although maybe people have already given up on the Falcons. I don't know. I think it would have been cool to do it on Friday night. And if things did go terribly, you could bring him back on Sunday. But hopefully everything works out on Sunday, and we'll get a chance to say farewell to Charlie Morton and all he's done as an Atlanta Brave, starting as a Brave, coming back, helping them win a World Series. Truly going to be, somebody that a lot of Braves fans remember for a very long time. So that'll be really fun to watch over the weekend on Sunday in the finale. A little bit of Major League Baseball news as we get ready to wrap up this season and think about opening day for next year. Netflix will be the exclusive home of MLB's opening day next year, which is a 3-year agreement. So if you haven't got that Netflix subscription, you need another subscription out there to watch baseball. There you go. Now you can watch games on Netflix too, or at least opening day games. So that's the news for the day. Looking forward to wrapping things up this weekend, getting into the off season. I know we're all kind of been waiting on it. The writing's been on the wall for this team for quite some time now. We're all hoping for a very busy off season, hopefully a very exciting off season. So can't wait to get into all of that with you. We'll be doing a lot more live episodes pretty much every night as we get into the off season as well. But enjoy this final weekend. I say it all the time. I know it's a rough season. I know we don't like how things are ending, but I promise you, in those cold days of December and January, you'd be wishing to watch a meaningless Braves and Pirates game. So take advantage of this weekend while you got it. If you're in Atlanta, able to go catch a game, go and do so. It should be a lot of fun there, and saying farewell to a lot of these guys. Ozuna, Charlie Morton, I think definitely won't be back. But make sure if you got a chance, use Gametime as well. Go get those tickets and go watch a Braves game this weekend. Say goodbye to the fellas and kick them off into the off season. So looking forward to all of that. Make sure you are subscribed here to Locked On Braves. As I said, we'll have a ton of off season content coming your way. Thanks so much for those who joined me here live. PJ's, Parton, Blood as well. Miguel Fria. Thank you all. Joe Me and here. Appreciate you joining us. Joe Me said, want to watch Skeens pitch against us. I think they want to, that's probably just where he was in the rotation, but they got to start him and was somewhat of a postseason game against the Reds. And it was a really good matchup between him and Hunter Green. So, yeah, it would have been nice to see him in Atlanta against the Braves, but that was a really fun matchup to watch. All right, make sure you subscribe on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button, leave me a comment down below. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast. We will have a mailbag episode tomorrow. I'll send out a post from LockedOn_Braves on Friday morning. Respond to that post with your question to be answered on Friday's afternoon mailbag episode. All right, that will do it. We'll catch you next time.